Hi, welcome to Senior Moments Successful Aging. I'm Mary Beals-Luedtka, your host. I'm the director for NACOG Area Agency on Aging, and you can reach us toll-free at 877-521-3500. Senior Moment Successful Aging is co-sponsored with the Division of Lifelong Learning at Yavapai College. Our producer is Connie Del Castillo, and our co-producer is with NACOG Area Agency on Aging, Allie Bateman. Connie's number is 928-717-7607. Call her if you have any questions about the show. Also, you can call Allie at that toll-free number, 877-521-3500. Maybe you have ideas about a show you'd like to see in the future. Again, give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. And welcome to the show. And welcome, Erin Aafedt.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming today.
Oh, my pleasure.
We appreciate it very much. You have a long background in speech therapy.
Yes, about 27 years.
Yeah. So we've been in the same fields for 27 years. Me in aging, you in speech therapy. I'm sure they cross
Somewhere, yes.
somewhere, many times. So where do you come from originally?
Southern California, actually.
Okay. Whereabouts?
Manhattan Beach.
Okay. All right.
Left long ago. Can't stand the traffic.
Yeah, I know it's tough. Isn't it? The beach is great. Traffic, not so much. So how long have you been in the Prescott area?
11 years now.
Okay. So you're almost a native now.
I guess so.
I guess so. And you work at Mountain Rehab Hospital?
Mountain Valley
yeah.
Regional Rehabilitation Hospital,
Yeah.
yep.
I always think of it, okay, it's the rehab hospital, and we're very, very lucky to have that hospital. So maybe you could tell us a little about the hospital itself, and then we'll get into your specific job.
Sure. We are a 44-bed, what they call acute inpatient rehab facility, and our patients stay there for, the average length of stay is about 14 days. And we have people there with strokes, traumatic brain injuries, brain cancer, maybe Parkinson's, hip replacements, multi-traumas from car accidents, spinal cord injury patients. They come from us from other hospitals, and we rehab them so they can get back home with physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy.
So it's intense rehabilitation.
Yes, each patient has to have a minimum of 3 hours of therapy each day.
Wow, and that's intense when you're recovering from something.
Very much.
Yeah, that's what gets them better, though.
Gets them going. That's what the current research is all about. Is the faster you can get, especially stroke victims, up and mobilized, the better the outcomes are.
So it's a rehab hospital, and your position there is as a speech pathologist. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And we're going to talk about strokes today.
Yes. I am on a mission this year to get people to be aware of signs of strokes, because if you get to the hospital quick enough, there's actually some things that could counteract what's happening in your brain. But you have to get to the hospital quick enough.
You got to know what's going on and know what the red flags are.
Yes.
You know. So what exactly is a stroke? What happens?
So I like to say, to get people to think of stroke as a brain attack, because we all know what a heart attack is.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
You have to think about it as a brain attack, because basically part of your brain isn't getting oxygen, and that's what happens in a heart attack as well. So it could be from a clot. I got a little diagram here. I don't know if I could show you.
Okay.
It could be a clotting type stroke where no blood can go through. Okay. And their blood carries oxygen, and so anything past that point, those brain cells aren't getting enough oxygen. The lesser one, common one, is a hemorrhagic stroke, which means your blood vessel broke a wall, so the blood is spewing out, actually. And that tends to have more mortality or death rates to it, and more disability to it.
So I know oftentimes when we think about a stroke, it's like, you think about the person that loses like one side, the
Right. So different parts of your brain do different things. So, and then your right half of your brain controls the left side of your body, and the left side of your brain controls the right side of your body. So if you have a stroke in your left brain, you're more apt to have problems on your left side, or right side, excuse me, and counter otherwise.
So so there's two kinds of strokes.
Yes.
Yeah. So you've got the ischemic Is that how you say it?
Ischemic stroke and a hemorrhagic stroke.
Okay, and one's from the clot and one's from the blood vessel that breaks. So, and you said the hemorrhagic one, when they hemorrhage. I can say that. When they hemorrhage, that's worse.
That is worse, because not only is the blood not getting past that point, but now you have blood sitting on healthy brain tissue.
Okay.
And it is more detrimental overall. Mm-hmm. And they have to do surgery to fix those things.
So they can't go in and fix them?
Yeah, if you get to the hospital.
If you get to the hospital quick enough, yeah, you know. And you were talking about the left side, the right side, but you still need both sides because they work. They have to work together.
They all work together. Yeah. And I'm just going to back up just a little bit, because the ischemic clotting type stroke, that's more common. That happens probably 83% of the time.
Really?
And so people with high cholesterol issues and more cardiac issues. Well, I'll just put up this little diagram for a second. So this is like your carotid artery. That's the ones that go along your neck, and that's what most plaque will come from, or cholesterol buildup. And it connects to what's called the middle cerebral artery here, and this feeds most of your brain. So if you have a stroke in that area, lots of bad things are going to happen.
Because a lot of the brain is going to be cut off.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So you want to be heart healthy as well.
You know, and so it's all interconnected.
Yes.
You know, with our health and wellness, but that blood supply to the brain is critical.
Yes. And then the effects of the stroke depends on the size, so the location and the size of the stroke itself.
So what do you mean by the size of the stroke?
Well, it depends. Let's go back to that clotting type stroke.
Oh, okay.
If it clots off, actually this one's better.
Okay. That's what I was going for. Okay.
If a clot gets stuck right here, then lots of areas affected. But if it's a small piece of plaque or cholesterol that's floating up and it gets caught way up here, less is affected.
Okay. So there are different sizes. I never thought of it as having different sizes. So what are the effects of, gender, race, age? How does that affect having a stroke?
Women, unfortunately, have more strokes than men, and I think they're linking that sometimes to hormones after a certain age. And of course, when we're all older, you're more apt to have a stroke. And then from a race standpoint, African American population and the Hispanic population have more strokes than Caucasians. Don't know why. And then if you've had a stroke before, or what's called a TIA, you're more apt to have a stroke, another one. If you have diabetes and high blood pressure. So there's some controllable factors and there's uncontrollable factors.
So the controllable factors would be something I'd like to cover a little bit, because what can we do to help prevent that happening?
So again, if you're on high blood pressure medication, make sure you're taking them routinely, and you're monitoring your own blood pressure. If you have a cholesterol problem, make sure you're eating healthier and taking your cholesterol pills, so something doesn't, like I said, break off and kind of float up and get clotted up in your brain somewhere. And then diabetics really have to monitor their blood sugars and keep them in a safe range. And then all of that really feeds into eating healthy. So all those fruits and vegetables and grains.
Yeah, well, and you're right, though, because my cholesterol was getting high, and he wanted to put me on a statin. And I said, can I make a lifestyle change? And he said, okay. And so 3 months later, I went back, and I totally changed the way I ate, and my cholesterol went down without medication.
Yep.
And so, you can make lifestyle changes to help.
Yeah, and along with that, just physical activity, just walking. The National Stroke Association would really like people to take a brisk walk for 30 minutes. And really that's 15 minutes one way, 15 minutes back home. So it's really not that much, and it does amazing good for your own health.
I think we're supposed to be I think our human bodies were built to be moving. Everything you think about, peristaltic action in your colon, your heart, and get out and move.
Yeah.
People, get out and move. Yeah. I have to tell myself that sometimes. I got a stand-up desk because I sit so much.
Me too.
Yeah. I know it's hard when you're doing administration. It's like, okay, we're preaching this, but we need to walk the walk.
Right.
Too.
Right.
So why is it so important to act quickly, and what are some of the signs? Let's talk about the signs and symptoms and why.
Yeah.
Why?
So the signs and symptoms, the National Stroke Association really wants for everyone to learn the acronym FAST.
Okay, that's an easy acronym.
Yes. So F stands for face, and so if you see somebody whose face is suddenly drooping and sagging, one side or the other, doesn't matter, you want to call 911 and get them to the hospital right away.
Okay.
A stands for arms, and if somebody's acting just a little off, you probably would want them to tell them, raise both your arms. So you want them to do this. And if only one's going up, that's a problem.
It's a problem.
Or if they both go up but one falls, it's probably a sign of a stroke. Get them to the hospital. S stands for speech, and you would want the person just to start talking. If it sounds slurred, garbled, words aren't coming out right, something's just off to you, get them to the hospital.
Okay.
And then T stands for time, and time is of the essence to get them to the hospital. There is a drug that's a clot-busting drug. It's called TPA. But doctors can only give it to you within 3 hours of your symptoms. So if you all of a sudden feel funny and you decide to take a nap and go to sleep for 2 hours and wake up again, and now your whole side doesn't work, it's probably going to be too late for them to give you that drug. Okay. So you want to get to the hospital right away to see if you're a candidate to get the clot-busting drug. The other thing that they could do, mostly down in Phoenix, I don't think we have the capability up here, is actually go through your femoral artery and pull the clot out of your brain. That's
all the way from the femoral artery?
Yeah, from your leg.
That's a long way.
They go all the way up.
I'd like to see that done. Because you could watch it on the screen, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not the patient, but.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and we've seen in our hospital some amazing things with people that had got the blood clot dissolving drug. One guy came to us and he said, no, I couldn't talk, I couldn't move. I got to the hospital, and by the time we were seeing him, he only stayed like 5 days. And he's talking perfectly fine, no problems, walking around. And it's like, lucky you.
Lucky him.
Lucky.
But he acted fast.
Yes.
And I think, I think though that, I'm sure I'm not the only one, I'm sure our listeners think this too. It's like, sometimes, okay, let's say you have another condition like migraines, and sometimes before a migraine you have some weird symptoms, and then it's like, oh God, is it different? Should I call 911? And then you feel kind of like, but I think, you have to err on the side of caution.
You do.
Yeah.
And actually, that's you made me think of something.
Oh, good.
My doctors that I work with have always told me, in various hospitals I've worked at, if you have the severest headache you've ever had in your life, you should go to the ER.
Yeah. Because
it's probably a bleeding type stroke that you're having. So just to put that out there for the audience, if you're having the most severest headache you've ever had in your life and it's unusual for you, get to the hospital.
Get to the hospital. And it's better to go and have it not be a stroke.
Right. Definitely.
Because like you said, sometimes the symptoms and the effects of the stroke can last forever.
So other different symptoms are just being generally confused. Some dizziness could be a factor. Definitely if you're having trouble, let's say you woke up and you're having trouble getting out of your bed, that's probably a sign that you've had a stroke in the middle of the night, which does happen quite frequently.
Does it?
Vision problems are common. So if all of a sudden you're having double vision and you don't usually have migraines and get that anyway, that could be a stroke symptom. And if you actually had a stroke in what's called your brain stem, then the only problem you might have is some dizziness, nausea, and swallowing problems. So everything else could be working fine, you're walking fine, but all of a sudden you're like, can't swallow.
You know, I think it all goes to being aware of your own self. You know, I think we know innately if something's wrong with us, you know, and you have to follow your gut.
Yes,
you know,
you
don't
do.
be afraid. Don't be afraid to call 911 if you need them.
Right, and
You know.
like you said, it's better to err on the side of caution.
Yeah,
overall.
absolutely. So we talked about some of the signs and symptoms, but there, you know, this is an easy thing to remember: the face, the arms.
Yep.
You know,
Fast, act fast.
the speech,
face, arms, speech, and time.
And time. So
time
3
is
hours,
critical.
and we're lucky because we have medical care very close by for everybody in the Quad City area.
Yes.
So there should be no reason why you can't get there quickly.
Correct.
You know, so would it be better to call 911, or could you have somebody rush you there? I mean, does it matter?
You know, if you have somebody that can rush you there, that's, well, I don't know. I actually, down in Phoenix, Barrow Neurological Institute, they just outfitted EMS ambulance to have a CT scan in the ambulance.
Nice.
So that they can, because before you have the TPA, the clot busting drug, you have to have a CT scan to make sure you're not having a hemorrhagic stroke.
Right.
So they have a CT scan in this ambulance, and they have the clot busting drug in the ambulance as well.
Nice. So you can get to it right away.
Depends. If you're in Phoenix, you might want to call them.
Yeah, but we probably don't have that here.
No, don't have that here.
We
not
probably don't have that here. So do you see a lot of stroke victims that are for your patients at the rehab hospital?
Yeah, we have about, I'm counting, about 30 to 40 stroke patients each quarter. So
that is a lot.
In any given time period, we usually have 5 or 6 patients with strokes.
You know, and you did mention age being a factor.
Yeah, yeah, and then just to educate the audience a little bit more, those are different lobes of your brain, and the different lobes do different things to run your whole body. And like you talked about before, they all have to kind of interconnect and talk to each other, and both sides have to talk to each other. So this red part's called your frontal lobe, and that has to do mostly with your thinking skills and talking.
Is that where you reason?
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm also a big helmet person. You got to wear your helmet to protect this thing.
Okay. Yeah, and I do wear my helmet on the bike.
Very good.
Yes, I do.
Your temporal lobe has to do with memory and understanding what people are telling you. So a little bit more language in there. Your parietal lobe has to do with how you're sensing things: heat, cold, pain, touch, light, feel, deep sensation. And also visual spatial skills. Your occipital lobe processes all your vision. So your eyes are up here, all that information goes way back here to get processed. And if you're reading, then that information comes over here, so you can understand the language part. And this is called your cerebellum, that's your little brain. And it has a lot to do with fine motor control and balance. And then your brainstem has to do with your basic life support, so heart rate, breathing.
Your subconscious stuff that you're not thinking about consciously. Yeah.
How you swallow, how you're breathing, your heart rate, your blood pressure, all that kind of stuff.
So you need them all.
You need them all.
You need them all in order to make everything come together.
You know, sometimes we have patients in our hospital that the only thing that was affected was how they're talking. They can't get their words out, but they're walking around just fine. They can't stay with us very long because of that, but
yeah.
And then other times, somebody's very impaired with the walking aspect or getting dressed aspect, but they don't need much speech therapy. So it just depends.
It depends on where it hits. It's kind of like Alzheimer's. What center of the brain has been affected by that disease depends how the person acts.
Yes.
So you mostly work just with the speech piece.
Yes, but speech therapy actually. There's like 3 main components. For speech is how it sounds.
Okay.
So it's slurry or sloppy or breathy. The language component, so being able to get all the words out in the right order and then understanding what people are saying and be able to read and write. how you're swallowing. So like I said before, some people their swallowing muscles are not working well. So we do exercises to try to make that improve so they can eat whatever they want and drink whatever they want. And then thinking aspects, so being able to pay attention, reason, pay your checks or pay your bills accurately, remember, all those types of things. So there's cognition, speaking, language, and swallowing, and that's all worked on by speech therapy.
That's all you have to, not much to think about there, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot. So I remember when my father-in-law had his major stroke that we had to put signs up everywhere for him to remember what things were.
Yeah, sometimes it's a word retrieval problem.
Yeah, because I think he knew in here, but he couldn't
get it out.
Couldn't get it out. Yeah,
right.
That's a perfect way to say it.
Yeah, and that's probably the most common problem that we see is you just can't get the word out, and it happens to all of us after probably age 40.
I have those moments. I'm like,
yeah. But when you've had a stroke or any other type of brain injury, it becomes more issue, more frequent for you. And sometimes it can mask and look like a memory problem. I'm working with one patient right now that's the problem. It looks like a memory problem, but when I ask him specific questions, he can answer the questions and remember the story content. But for him to tell it to me on his own, all the words get stuck.
So there's a disconnect there somewhere. Okay. And sometimes the stroke can do that?
Yep.
Interesting. So you mentioned a TIA. Let's talk about that a little more.
Sure. A TIA is trans-ischemic attack, is what it stands for. And some doctors will just say, oh, you had a mini stroke. And what it is you have all the symptoms of having a stroke, but then they go away, like usually by the time you're still in the emergency room, everything's resolved. Although you went there and your arm wasn't moving and your leg wasn't moving and your speech was sloppy. So that's a warning sign for people that they should get to the doctor, tell them what's happened, that you had this TIA, and they should start running some tests because it could be, again, from a cardiac source, cholesterol or something, and maybe they need to get on some sort of medicine. But somebody should be monitoring you, and it shouldn't be taken lightly.
You know, because I know I've heard sometimes that people will go in and they're like, oh, you've had 8 TIAs. How, is that from a brain scan they can tell that? Or, you know, I mean, how do they tell if you've had one in general?
I don't know. A brain scan would show little, what they call infarcts.
Okay.
In the brain. I'm not aware of TIAs really showing up that way, but maybe they do. Like it does for the heart.
Or maybe I heard it wrong. I mean, you know, but I know you've had TIAs. You know, I definitely have heard that about our patients. You know, oh, my doctor told me I've had TIAs.
If they've had a CAT scan, something little's probably shown up. Little dot.
A little dot here and there.
Yeah.
So pay attention to those little dots because they all. So you said we talked again about the immediate care following a stroke. Part of that is that clot busting drug.
Right.
But you know what are other things they can do for you?
So if you go to the hospital and they admit you, you're probably gonna hopefully you're a candidate for the clot busting drug TPA. Or maybe they fly you down to Phoenix if something more crucial needs to be done. What you really would want to, and while you're in that acute care hospital, as we call it, you should already be getting some therapy. So PT is going to come in there and start getting you up. OT is going to do something. Speech is probably going to make sure you can swallow safely. And then from that point, if you're not really ready to go home, you're still having some physical problems, you're going to want to try to get into a rehab hospital. If you can't get into a rehab hospital for some reason, then some skilled nursing homes will take you and provide you with therapy too. That just won't be as intensive, and they probably don't have the fancy equipment that our hospital has, let's say. Our hospital has this device called the 0G, and it's can offload weight and harness somebody in. And you can offload their weight and just practice on the mechanics of walking without having 3 people to hold you up.
Interesting.
And if the patient is going to fall, the machine catches them and doesn't let them hit the ground at all. So it's a way to get our stroke patients or other injured patients more mobile quickly and getting back that automatic sequence of just taking steps without having to worry about falling. And we have special e-stim, electrical stim devices to help. Often with a stroke, your foot drop does this. You can't lift your toes up. So we have a device that fits into people's shoes and around their calf muscle down there.
Oh, yeah?
And once they take a step, it triggers and gives a little electrical stim to the muscle that lifts your toes up. And then same thing for the arm. They're called the BioNest units. And
I've never seen those.
It activates this motion, so you can start moving, getting your hand moving. And then from the speech standpoint, we have some computer programs to help with swallowing, and an e-stim device for swallowing as well.
Interesting.
So we have a thing called the Vision Coach. So it's a big board, and it comes up with little dots, so you practice seeing, because some people with a stroke forget they have a left side of their world. They don't pay attention.
Okay.
So it's a way to get them to start focusing and reaching and pressing these dots off and not losing their balance. So
retrain.
Retrain.
You can retrain your brain.
You can, and that's what's hopeful these days. When I first got out of school, they were still kind of in the mindset that you had stroke, whatever you got in the first month, that's all you're going to get, or the first 6 months. And now all the research is showing that people can still progress even 10 years down the line. They can still show some progression in something. So I tell my patients never to give up.
There you go. That's nice to know that you have hope. You know, that there's. What if someone's had a stroke in the past and never had that kind of care? Can they try to come in and relearn?
Yes. Yes, definitely. And there's two ways that could happen. If they're struggling at home and maybe declined in their function, they could actually be admitted to our hospital from home. Or they could come in as an outpatient 2 or 3 days a week.
So critical is the fast thing. You know, just making sure the face, the arm, the speech, and time.
Fast, think fast.
Think fast. If you're around somebody that you think, might be having those symptoms, if you yourself are having those symptoms, reach out and get some help.
Yes.
But I also, it's nice to know that there's new technology so that there's hope, that we can retrain. It's not the end of the road when you have a stroke.
No, not anymore.
And then we've got those controllable things.
Yes. Control your blood sugar, your blood pressure. And if you're a heart patient with atrial fib, be very mindful because that has a high risk of stroke too.
And do what your doctor asks you to.
Yes.
Be proactive. And I really thank you for coming here today, Erin Aafedt.
Thank you.
It was nice to meet you. And Mountain Valley Rehab Hospital. I said it wrong again, didn't I?
It's a long one.
Yeah.
Mountain Valley Regional Rehabilitation Home.
We're very lucky to have it in our area with all the equipment there. And so if you see any of those symptoms, act fast. Erin, thank you very much for being here.
Right.
Thank you for being with us today. I'm Mary Beals-Luedtka. This is Senior Moment, Successful Aging. Until next time.